Okay, so recording has started. Once again, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining another session of Azure Power Lunch. Just a quick heads up, this call is being recorded and we place our recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be recorded, you may want to drop off now. Okay, so with that, we have an exciting topic today, Azure Linux Container Host for AKS. Here is a quick agenda. We're going to talk about Azure Linux. First, we're going to see what uh, some of the key characteristics are, some of the things, and then we talk about Azure Linux Container Host for AKS and what are some of the benefits it's offer. And we have a small demo as well. So that's our section for today. First of all, I mean, it has been big change. I mean, if anybody remembers history of Microsoft and Linux, Azure Linux is a great step forward. First of all, it is a lightweight Linux operating system, and it is a distribution by Microsoft. And you can access that distribution in GitHub. It's available, and Azure Linux is a supported version of that. Okay, so it's known. It used to be known as CBL Mariner, um, and this distribution is controlled by Microsoft. It is a recommended distribution to be used inside for the first party products internal to Microsoft. Okay, we wanted Microsoft wanted a Linux distribution for uh, their first party products, and that's Azure Linux. Just keep in mind that this Linux distribution is only available externally um, as um, as a at this moment as we speak as a container host for AKS. Okay, you cannot run this on a kind of as a container or in a VM at the moment. Okay. And by the way, I have some resources in the end. I will highly recommend. There are two. There is one video from Build this year, which goes over some of the Q&A around this Azure Linux distribution. And I think that would be really helpful for you to take a look at that uh, video and just understand Microsoft perspective on Linux. So just want to mention, and you will see that in kind of different resources as well. This is an kind of an opinionated Linux distribution focused primarily on Microsoft cloud use cases. Okay, so what it allows us to do is it allows us to reduce the overall size of the kind of the entire image and thus reduce the number of packages. So if you understand kind of uh, whenever there is a vulnerability or a defect found, um, you have to go and fix in a package. You have to fix that. You have to update the package. I mean, the painful thing is you some vulnerability is discovered in a package that you are not using, but you still have to apply the update. You know, so that's what we are trying to limit. We want to keep only the packages that we absolutely need, and thus reducing the size, reducing the attack surface, reducing the updates that we have to apply, and then we do the entire end-to-end build by ourselves as well. So Microsoft is doing the entire build, kind of building the kernel themselves. So that's and since we are now controlling the supply chain, that makes the entire process, uh, kind of add further security to the entire process for our customers. So here is what is meant by this having this Azure Linux on Kubernetes service. So first of all, if you know, AKS, if you're not aware of it, Azure Kubernetes Service is a managed Kubernetes, is a Microsoft Kubernetes that is offered as a managed Kubernetes service on Azure. Customers can run their Kubernetes workloads on that, makes it really simple in and quick deploying that infrastructure. You don't have to go and spin up, VMs and configure those. You are basically just going in, clicking a button or typing a single command, spin up your infrastructure and workloads on it. And what this does, and what we were doing before Azure Linux, Microsoft Compute team was responsible for VM below. All of that was their responsibility, and AKS team was doing Kubernetes and above. Okay, so that was there. In the middle, the container host, we were using Ubuntu. And with that, now we have a third option, Azure Linux, which is a host that is first party. Microsoft, just like Windows Server, Microsoft is controlling this, has this distribution. And we are, along with AKS, building the AKS, we are building the um, now we are building this Azure Linux image as well entirely. So this gives us an opportunity to control the entire spectrum, basically end to end, the entire supply chain. From uh, hypervisor to the VM to the container host, and then, of course, manage Kubernetes. So the entire thing, we are controlling it. We are one vendor to support the entire AKS stack, and we kind of do end-to-end testing. Of course, robust testing and all that. And just one thing I want to be very clear about, based on the and I'm sure you have heard seen the documentation and session. The goal here is not to replace Ubuntu. At this moment, if you run Kubernetes or kind of a type in AZAKS create without any commands, it will create an Ubuntu based container host. Got it? So that is still a default host. You have to go in and you have to spin up. Basically, you have to define the OSQ as Azure Linux to spin up the container. Spin up the container host that is Azure Linux. So that is not the default host. The goal is to make sure that whenever we apply any innovations, we apply to all of these hosts, Windows Server, Ubuntu, and Azure Linux. Number one. Number two, we wanna end goal is anyways with AKS to minimize the host itself, because the goal is not to worry about the host and infrastructure. The goal is to run your microservices and applications. So that's the end goal. And at the same time, what Microsoft is um, kind of trying to do is that um, you know we will be providing updates to it if there are any defects or anything, just like we do with other container hosts as well. So there is, and your application will run seamlessly. So if you have, like, let's say, containers based application that you're running on these hosts, that you don't have to change anything. So as simple as that. So at this moment, I want to open up for any questions.
Just a quick one I noted there, Naveed, thank you for hosting this exciting topic, is are we going to see Azure supported on the Ampere RISC, whatever the alternate processor, and then can we do nested virtualization?
Okay, first of all, yes, AMD, you're talking about AMD 64?
No, I'm talking about the ARM.
Yes, yes, sorry. Yes, ARM 64. Yes, that will be supported. That is supported, I think. Yes.
And then
ARM
what
is
about
supported.
virtualization, sir?
Okay, so here's the thing. At this moment, it is only available as an container host. Okay, so that's the only availability at this moment. So once it comes out of that, or it's available on a VM, that we will know more about it. I don't see any reason why not, but at this moment, the only use is in the context of an AKS container host.
Copy that. Thank you, sir.
Got it? Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's that. Okay. Um, any other questions? Okay, so let's do a quick demo. So what I'm gonna do is let me spin up a command line. Where is my command line here? Okay, so here is the command line. I hope everybody can see it. So what I'm doing is I have a, so first of all, what I'm gonna show you how to create a AKS cluster using the, so as you can see, this is the command. I mean, AKS, AZ, AKS create. Simple, boilerplate. You have to give it a name of the cluster. You have to give a resource group. And here it is, OS SKU. You will see there's a new SKU added, Azure Linux. I mean, this is once again boilerplate, node count, but this is, you have to change. Once you do that, it's gonna start spinning up a AKS cluster and with Azure Linux node. So let's run this command and let's see what happens. Okay, so while it's running, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oh, come on, I'm going to go to another command prompt and I am going to access an existing cluster. So I already have a cluster deployed. So while it is running, I mean, we don't have time. It's a 30-minute session. So I'm not going to wait for this cluster to spin up. I already have spun up a cluster and let's go there. So let's do the kubectl get nodes. Okay, so this is a cluster that I'm already running. And as you can see here, it has one node pool and a single node. And look at this. What is the OS image type? The image type is CBL Mariner Linux. And that's so let's take a step back. As I said in the beginning, there is a open source GitHub distribution that is out there. It's called Mariner, and that name will not change. That is same. So that's, think of it, the code name, actual supported version through AKS host, container host is Azure Linux. So you will see this CBL Mariner. That's the image that you will see. I mean, that the image you will see if you deploy that container. Okay. And as I said, small image, 450 plus MB. So that's an advantage. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to kind of go inside the images, see what some of the things that are going on. And I'm going to do a very simple thing here. I'm sure if you are familiar with Kubernetes, you know this. I am going to uh, go in, sorry, just copy that command and run this command here. Okay, so it is gonna start the debug pod, and then I'm going to, okay, so now let me show you what are the some of the, and by the way, it uses DNF as the package manager. So if I type DNF, look, DNF is fully supported here. And let's see the size, how many packages are there. As I said, this distribution is limited, only 500 plus packages. That's the total size of packages that are there. RPM is based on RPM, by the way. So that's the size of packages, 500 plus. So as I said in the beginning, having less number of packages mean if you need something, you can add it. If you don't need something that is not there, you're okay with it. If there is a CVE, I mean, vulnerability, kind of announce in a package that you are not using, that is not there, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so that's that's the advantage of having kind of this type of distribution. So that's that. Okay, and not only that, so you don't have to create a Linux, create an AKS cluster with only Azure Linux node. You can have a mix. You can have some nodes where the container host is Azure Linux. You can have some nodes where the container host is Ubuntu. Okay, so they both can coexist. So there is no issue there. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so let me just exit out of here. Hopefully that will give you an idea of how this thing is. Okay. Oh, by the way, this cluster is created, and what we're gonna do now that we are gonna go in and we are going to add a node pool to the cluster. And let me show you that command as well. So first of all, let's come here. Okay, and once again, look here. The main thing is OSQ. We are just changing the SKU. We are saying, hey, run Azure Linux. So it's going to add a new node to this demo cluster that we already have, and it's going to add a new node pool. I'm sorry. Hold on. I think I screwed up something. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Let me just go into this one. And what was the name of the cluster? Yeah. So I think I may have missed the name. Okay, yes. Sorry, I mistyped the name. So let me just type in the right command and then this thing will run. So I'm going to paste it here, run it. This command is running and we don't have to wait for it to finish. I already have um, a cluster that is deployed. So I am going to, with mixed things, and I'm going to use that. And let's go in there. So while this is running, I'm going to the second tab and let's get that cluster. Okay. And now let's, okay, as you can see here, there it, so I already have a cluster which is Ubuntu and Azure Linux. And as you can see here, there are two node pools. The first one from the top, you can see it's Mariner. The second one, Ubuntu. Both of them are living side by side in perfect harmony. I mean, this is the Ubuntu, the host that is available, and this is CVL Mariner host that is available. Okay. And just want to emphasize one more time that this is the container host. This is not a container that you can spin up. It is to host your containers. Okay. So that's that. And normally, um, idea is that you will never be playing around with the container host, installing anything on the container host. That's the goal, but this is the container host that is provided. So both of them existing side by side. Um, there was one other thing I want to mention here is that um, uh, the and one thing I want to emphasize, your container should run. So let's say that you are deploying containerized application on Ubuntu, but then you moved on, you started using Azure Linux Container Host. You should not change anything in your containers when you're deploying to either Azure Linux host or Ubuntu. That should work seamlessly. And that's very important thing to understand, that that's the goal, that both should work seamlessly, and we're not replacing one with the other or anything. It is just giving customer an option. Hey, this is a lightweight system. If you want to take advantage of it, where we maintain end-to-end supply chain, that's the goal of um, this particular distribution. Okay. Any questions, folks?
It kind of seems like the Azure Linux is going to be the default for AKS clusters, maybe someday in the future. Is that what you're thinking, Naveed?
I'm not sure, man. I mean, I can't speak for the PG product team. I mean, at this moment, the default is, so if I spin up um, the clusters, AKS cluster without any parameters, it's gonna spin up Ubuntu. You know, future where it takes us, I, I mean, I have no visibility to that. But at this moment, the goal is to make sure that any updates that comes in or features that come in, they're applied to all three of the host, which is Windows Server, which is Ubuntu, and which is Azure Linux, which is Mariner.
So is this supported for production clusters at this time if I
Yeah, yeah,
wanted to
yeah. It's GA.
system or a
Absolutely.
user node pool?
Yep. So it is GA. You can use it for any of your um, existing workloads that you have.
So what's the practical reason? Do you think there's going to be a performance improvement? I know the security posture seems like it's better.
Yeah, I mean, as let's go back to the slide deck for a second. I mean, as you can see here, they have outlined a few benefits of Azure Linux. It's smaller in size. Microsoft is doing end-to-end testing because we are building everything. I mean, there's one dialogue that I heard on one of the sessions in Build, and that's a public session. I mean, you can, the link is in the end, in the resources section, where they're saying is that before we were building AKS, but now we are building the container host ourselves as well. And we are testing it and all that. So scanning, patching, security patches, we are responsible for applying. You see what I'm saying? So end to end, we are now controlling end to end supply chain. Got it. Okay. Any other questions?
Naveed, one question I would have, and I apologize,
Yes.
I may have covered this. I joined late, but around the
Mhm,
infrastructure scanning and the security patching, how is
mhm.
that? How is that handled? That life cycle there?
What do you mean? Like, I think there is a 72 hours SLA, as far as I know. So once the patch is discovered, um, I think it's like in within 72 hours that would be patched.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And let me show you. Here is the Mariner uh, distribution. So I have a link to it in the resources as well, but just if you want to take, I mean, some of the stuff that I'm showing in the slide deck is coming from this as well. So this is CBL Mariner public distribution. Okay. So finally, any questions, folks? Okay. So with that, if there are no questions, I will give everybody their 3 minutes back and hope to see everyone. Okay, I think there's 1 second. There's a question. Yeah, I think I already addressed that. Yeah. So hope to see everybody next week, another session of Azure Power Lunch, and everybody have a wonderful weekend.